Today, we are peeling back the layers of The Yellow Wallpaper. It's a story that kicks off like a summer vacation, but ends up as a complete psychological nightmare. People have called it a feminist masterpiece, a chilling horror story. But is it really a tale of madness, or is it about finding a strange kind of freedom? Let's get into it.
The story starts with our narrator just feeling like something is off. The house her husband rented seems way too cheap, it's been empty for too long, and she just gets this weird vibe she can't quite put her finger on. Right from the get-go, this line tells you her gut is screaming that something's wrong, even when the rational world tells her everything's fine.
All right, so here's the setup. We have our narrator who's dealing with what her husband, John, who happens to be a physician, calls a temporary nervous depression. And his big prescription? A summer of total and complete rest in this isolated mansion where she's forbidden from doing any work, and especially from writing.
Now, here's a really crucial piece of context. The rest cure wasn't just some plot device the author made up. No way. It was a very real and honestly a pretty controversial treatment back then. And in this fascinating and kind of horrifying twist, the author, Charlotte Perkins Gilman, was actually prescribed this exact cure by a real doctor. It drove her to the absolute edge, so she wrote this story as a massive warning.
This right here is the heart of the story's conflict. On one side, you have John, the man of medicine, the authority figure, demanding she just shut down her mind and rest. But on the other hand, our narrator feels it in her bones that she needs the exact opposite. She's craving work, excitement, and the simple freedom to write down her thoughts. She's trapped between his professional authority and her own intuition, and she's left wondering, what is one to do? So, John picks out a room for her at the very top of the house. He calls it a nursery, which sounds harmless enough, right? But the details, they are deeply unsettling. The windows have bars on them, the bed is literally nailed to the floor, and the wallpaper, it's stripped off in huge patches, almost like someone before her tried desperately to claw their way out. This place feels less like a recovery room and way more like a prison cell. So, with nothing to do and her world basically shrunk down to these four walls, her incredibly sharp and intelligent mind latches onto the only thing it can, the room's hideous yellow wallpaper. And here's the creepy part. The more she looks at it, the more it seems to look back.
This is her first take on it. I mean, it's not just ugly. She sees it as aggressively, actively offensive. The pattern makes no sense. It's chaotic. It's almost as if it was designed specifically to confuse your eyes and just get on your last nerve. It's really the perfect visual for the oppressive, nonsensical world she finds herself trapped in.
And as you can imagine, her obsession just gets deeper. She starts seeing violence and suffering inside the pattern. The color isn't a cheerful, sunny yellow. She calls it a smoldering, unclean yellow, like something old and foul. The curves in the design appear to commit suicide. Other parts look like a broken neck, and there are these bulbous eyes that seem to stare at her. It's absolutely horrifying. So what does her loving, rational husband do when she tells him how much this paper is torturing her? He completely dismisses her. He calls her a blessed little goose and basically tells her to stop giving in to such fancies. Her very real horror isn't real to him at all. It's just a childish whim. This condescending attitude is just as much a prison as those barred windows.
Okay, this is where the story takes its famous, chilling turn. The wallpaper stops being just an ugly pattern. Our narrator starts to see something, or more accurately, someone, moving behind it. She's starting to slip into a whole new reality, one that's been hiding within the walls of her room all along.
At first, it's faint, just a formless sort of figure she can only catch in certain lights. It's like a sub-pattern, a dim shape that's lurking behind the loud, chaotic design that everybody else sees. But she can't look away. She keeps watching.
And then the shape gets clearer. It's a woman. And she isn't standing tall and proud. She's stooping down and creeping. This idea of creeping becomes so important. It suggests something hidden, something humiliated, a regression, a loss of what makes you human. And then the moonlight hits the wall just right, and it becomes absolutely undeniable. That outer pattern suddenly looks like prison bars, and the woman behind them, she's as clear as day. She's trapped in there, and she's shaking those bars, desperately trying to get out. So let's break this down. What does all of this symbolize? Well, that ugly outer pattern, that represents the oppressive social rules of her time. It's the box that women were expected to live in. And the trapped woman behind it? That is the narrator's own suppressed self, her spirit raging against that confinement. And the creeping? That's the dehumanizing horror of what happens to a person when they're suppressed like that.
So we get to the last day of the summer rental, and our narrator decides she has a mission. She has to free the woman from the wallpaper. And this mission, it leads to one of the most unforgettable and most debated endings in all of American literature.
She locks the door, she throws the key out the window, and she just starts tearing the paper from the walls. In this final, frantic act, the line between herself and the woman in the wallpaper completely dissolves. She isn't freeing someone else anymore. She's becoming free herself.
When John finally breaks down the door, this is what she yells at him. It's this triumphant cry, and listen closely to who she defied: you and Jane. For the very first time, we think we hear her name, Jane, and she speaks about Jane as if she were one of her captors. It's like, to get free, she had to destroy not just the wallpaper, but her old self too.
And here it is, the ultimate power shift. John, the logical, controlling man of science, is faced with a reality his mind just can't process, and he faints. He just collapses right there in her path. And our narrator, now totally in her element, just keeps on creeping right over his unconscious body. The roles have been completely reversed.
And that's what makes this story an absolute masterpiece. It takes that old mad woman in the attic cliché and just flips it on its head. In this story, her so-called madness isn't a tragic breakdown, it's a rebellion. It was the only way her true self could finally break free from the forces that were trying to completely erase her. So in the end, yeah, the narrator may have lost what we call sanity, but she believes she's found her freedom. And the story leaves us all with this really haunting question: when your entire world is a prison, is madness the only way out?